Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Longevity Blueprint podcast. The topic for today's podcast is the top 5 supplement myths you need to know about. My guest today is Tom Houle. Tom represents a premier dietary supplement manufacturer in the doctor-exclusive channel, which leads the way in proactive health and wellness as it relates to the healthcare industry. He has spent the better part of the last decade partnering with functional and integrative medical practices in order to get patients better faster through education and practice building. Through consultation, he specializes in developing customized strategies to increase patient compliance, consequently improving patient outcomes, while creating a streamlined process to aid in the efficiency within the patient experience. So, full disclaimer, Tom works for our manufacturing partner, which is Orthomolecular. He is our educational representative, and I just want to put that out there from the very beginning. I've known Tom for years. I just like to be transparent with our audience and with our patients, of course. So who better to bring on to talk about supplements than our manufacturing partner? So I'm excited to have Tom on today. So thank you for being here.
Honored to be here.
So my first introduction to Orthomolecular was as a nurse practitioner student. So in my final semester, I shadowed another nurse practitioner who had an independent practice, which I thought was really cool. And I thought, maybe one day I can do this. And here I am now with an independent practice. So I was honored to be able to shadow her. And interestingly, one day a rep came in for Orthomolecular and talked to us about this liver detox program. And I thought, well, I was raised in a what I consider to be a very healthy family. We went to the chiropractor. My parents were juicing wheatgrass on the counter. We were taking our supplements. So it wasn't unusual for me to consider doing something like a liver detox. So she gave it to me at her cost and she said, hey, try this. And I was pretty amazed with the results. I thought, I like this company. Their stuff works. Like I need to hear more about ortho. My brain fog went away on this. I didn't even know I had brain fog actually, but my mind cleared, and which was very beneficial, being this was my final semester of grad school and I was about to take my board. So the timing was good. My brain fog cleared up. I lost weight. I had better energy, which was partially not just to doing the detox, but I had gone gluten-free and I had no idea that I had a major gluten sensitivity at that time. That was when I was first discovering this. So I feel very thankful that that day that I was there, this rep came in and introduced me to ortho and the liver detox program. And I've been a believer since. I heavily believe in high quality supplements. And that's why I wanted to talk to Tom today. Now, if you know me, I'm very close to my brothers. I have 2 younger brothers, and we used to always watch Mythbusters. We didn't get to watch a lot of TV growing up, but we watched Mythbusters. We enjoyed the experiments that they would do on that show because we wanted to know if the myths were, true or false. And so today I want to talk about some supplement myths. I want to preface and start this podcast by saying something that I always say, that there's no pill, potion, or powder that's going to replace lifestyle changes, right? We have to change our lifestyle. Like I needed to go gluten-free. I will always be gluten-free. There's no supplement I can take that's going to allow me to just eat gluten, right? So to the viewers and the audience out there, again, there's no pill, there's no supplement that's going to replace lifestyle changes. And Orthomolecular heavily believes that. But I do think supplements are very necessary in the world we live in. And we're going to talk a bit more about that today. So we're going to just dive into the myths. Tom is a very intelligent guy. I always enjoy conversing with him. So he's going to enlighten us today. So let's start with the top myth that I want to go over, which is that all supplements are created equal. I would say that's false. So what do you think, Tom? What do you think about that?
I get that question, or I would say objection, all the time when I'm having those conversations with family members, friends. All supplements are the same. All vitamin D is the same. All fish oil is the same. Well, I would throw it back to them and say, well, is all steak the same? Are all restaurants the same? No, there's varying levels of quality, especially when it comes to the source. And when we think about, I would draw the line. There's a difference between retail, things that you're going to find on the shelf at, big supermarkets versus something you're going to get from your clinician that's more of a professional or nutraceutical or pharmaceutical grade, and you'll hear that explained via different pronouns, I guess you'd say. But the difference really is the quality and the sourcing of the raw material. When in the retail channel, in the supermarket channel, their budget, their dollars that are spent for that shelf space are spent on marketing. So that's where the majority of dollars go to, versus the professional channel where these are doctor recommended products. And so the majority of cost goes into a higher quality of raw material, because these are used as medicines in a sort in clinics like yours, Dr. Gray, to actually impact lab values. And so we have to have not only a higher potency, but a higher standardization of active ingredient within the raw material. And so when we're looking for specific raw materials to include in a product for a specific purpose or rationale, we need to ensure that not only is it efficacious via clinical research, so there's science to back it up, but that it's pure, and with regards to the certificate of analysis and quality control process that goes into it to ensure that it's safe and ultimately going to get the results that we desire amongst our patients.
Could you give me some examples of where you source ingredients from? Like what countries? Like when we think of what it takes to get a pill from the plant on the farm to, well, not even the pill, the ingredient that's coming from the plant on the farm in whatever country, all the way to our shelves. Like when we think of that process, like, can you give us some examples of where these products are coming from? Like where you choose selectively to source ingredients from?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would also, preface that by saying different plants and ultimately different sources have a different phytochemical makeup in different climates around the world. So depending on the plant will depend on the region of the world. And then of course, when we think about certain quality things, you want to trust and verify. I mean, we've had relationships with our raw material suppliers for over 3 decades, some of them, but we're always ensuring that, things happen, whether it be logistically or from a sourcing standpoint. We're always bringing things in and testing them before they even enter our facility, from DNA, mass spec, thin layer chromatography, all these scientific validating measurements to assess quality and ultimately ensure that it's safe and pure. But when it comes to regional sourcing, when we have a standardization for a specific active ingredient, for instance, I'll take bergamot.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
It's utilized in support of cardiovascular health. A lot of clinicians are using it to help aid in healthy cholesterol balance. There's specific polyphenolic fractions that are part of that bergamot fruit that grows in one specific region of the world to ensure highest standardization of those things, or highest density of these polyphenols, and that's actually Calabria, Italy. And so we can only get this particular sourced bergamot from that region of the world, and we standardize 5 specific polyphenolic fractions that are shown in the research to have particular benefits as it relates to cardiovascular health, more particularly cholesterol balance. So that's just one example.
Yeah, that's good. So I mentioned this in chapter 7 of my book when I'm talking about nutrients we can use to reduce cardiovascular disease, that we carry a product called citrus bergamot, which, correct me if I'm wrong, has been, we'll just say, utilized by that population in Italy, which has been discovered as a blue zone because of their reduced cardiovascular risk. So obviously supplement companies and individuals want to capitalize on the benefits of what we're finding throughout these blue zones, but it's just not that easy. And that if one of my patients is purchasing bergamot from California or from another state, could be state or country, I can't guarantee they're going to get the benefits that they would get if they purchase the product from a clinician like myself, who knows the manufacturer is sourcing the ingredient from where the original research was conducted. Like, we know, even though I don't remember all the polyphenolic fragments or whatever you just said, which is over my head, I can trust that. And I want my patients to trust me that I'm looking into and working with a manufacturer who's doing all that research. You're doing that behind the scenes, so we can guarantee they're going to get a product that is sourced appropriately at the correct potency, that's going to have what the original research claims, state this nutrient can do for that patient. So I really appreciate that about ortho. What about like alpha lipoic acid? That's another nutrient we use to help patients detox. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure a lot of nutrients like alpha-lipoic acid could come from China, but you strategically choose to not source it from China, which would be a cheaper option for you. You instead get it from Germany. Is that correct?
Yep, our source, our supplier resides in Germany, and I'll add another level of knowledge here for your community in that with not all raw materials being equal or not all supplements being equal, there's different extraction processes that are allowed in different countries. There's different regulations. Obviously, China, hey, they're going to regulate their dietary supplement industry different than we do, and just like other countries. But when it comes to the manufacturing of them, there's solvent-based extraction process that use pretty harsh chemicals such as benzene. I know that unfortunately is how the majority of alpha-lipoic acid is extracted from white potato, actually. And of course, there may be some of that chemical latent in the finished good. So we choose based on the quality and of course safety and efficacy that we're going to choose a source that is more, clean as it relates to the extraction process. So we choose a source out of Germany that is enzymatically extracted. And of course, yes, there is a significant cost associated with that raw material compared to that is solvent extracted. And when we're thinking about just the safety piece of that conversation, we're gonna pay more versus something that may be found in a retail channel where we're looking at low quality in order to spend more money on marketing, and then also lower the cost for the patient, which is why you can get a bottle of something like fish oil, 1,000 caps of fish oil for $20, and 120 count bottle maybe from your line, Dr. Gray, is going to run 3 or 4 times that cost and be significantly less quantity. There's a difference in its quality. Right. I will add one more thing, and maybe it's more of a something that can stick in the patient community's mind. If you start with something like a piece of dirt, it doesn't matter what type of wrapper you put on it, what type of bottle, and what kind of fancy marketing you do. At the end of the day, it's still a piece of dirt. And unfortunately, there is definitely a lot of putting lipsticks on pigs when it comes to the supplement industry. And that unfortunately gives the supplement industry a bad name and leads to a lot of these myths that we're talking about today.
Sure. So tell me what a consumer could look for on a label to help them determine if the product is really high quality or not, because they're not going to know if the extraction process or the source, of the product. So what could a consumer look for on a label to help them identify that product as being really high quality?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that immediately comes to mind is looking at different forms of minerals in there, say multivitamin. And there's different forms such as carbonates and citrates and oxides. We want to stay away from oxides, but there's a single form that stands out head and shoulders above the rest, and that is amino acid chelates. They're not only the most absorbed, but they're the most therapeutic with the least amount of potential side effects. Like, for instance, I'll take magnesium. It's one of the most well utilized in the nutrient world from a supplemental standpoint. It's responsible for hundreds of enzymatic processes in the body, and ultimately, this is one that's really important to not be deficient in. I mean, it is absolutely essential to a lot of processes. And so we partner with the world-renowned supplier in mineral chelates. And what that means is these minerals, these metal ions, such as magnesium, is bound to an amino acid, which is almost ubiquitous as far as receptor sites in our gut. And our body absolutely respects amino acids, the building block of life. So naturally, our body's going to accept them when they're bound to, when I say accept them, accept the mineral that's bound to amino acids. Almost like you can pass go, collect $200, no problem, versus something like an oxide or a carbonate that may cross-react to other metal ions in the gut. They're less stable, they may bind, and also lead to things like loose bowels and diarrhea. Now, our partner, Albion Labs, is the premier as far as world renowned. They're the premier amino acid chelate. They actually have over 170 patents. and they create what's called the real amino acid chelate. You'll see that on the label as TRA, so tracks, to spell it out, tracks, the real amino acid chelate. And to differentiate what patients may be seeing on a label, they may see, say, magnesium chelate on a label in a retail product that's trying to like sell amino acid chelate. But if it doesn't say what the chelate is, so it should say something like magnesium glycinate or magnesium bisglycinate. And again, if we get to the marketing piece, if you say chelate, guess what that company may be chelating it with? The cheapest one, whichever one is on discount. So this batch may be a glycinate, next might be a bisglycinate, maybe it was about to turn at the raw material suppliers, they put it on discount. So you always want to know exactly what things are bound to, what they're chelated. So transparency on a label is extremely important, and we got to get away from marketing and really pay attention to the science here. And that's why, from a professional channel standpoint, consumers should rely on their clinician to do that for them, because the clinician, of course, is only going to recommend things, generally, like yourself, are only going to recommend things that they know are going to help their patients, because it does nobody good if the patient's not getting better. And the most expensive supplement, I would argue, is the one that doesn't work.
Well said, well said. I want to try to reiterate what you said, because all of that was wonderful. So to just summarize for the audience.
Yeah, I kind of talk a lot.
No, that's good.
So apologize for that.
An amino acid chelated version, right? Chelate is a synonym for bound or piggybacked. So what we like to recommend our patients take, and what you literally will see on our bottles, you will see what he mentioned, the labels. So on the back of the supplement label where it says magnesium, it will say TRAACS, all capital letters. That is the patented, trademarked Albion Lab, chelated source, or I don't know, source is the wrong word, a version of that amino acid chelate. That's the good stuff. That's what you want to look for. They are the industry leader. So that's what you're going to find on our supplements. Like Tom mentioned, if you're not taking a chelate, your magnesium could just go right through you and cause diarrhea. If you're taking not a chelated iron, the iron may do the opposite. It may cause constipation. We want the minerals to get absorbed into the gut. And so he was saying that your gut loves amino acids. So if this magnesium is piggybacked onto an amino acid and the gut loves amino acids, that's going to facilitate that magnesium on that amino acid getting absorbed into the gut lining. And so it's really brilliant process. We're just trying to give our body what our body wants and what it needs. So that's also the difference, again, between a lot of retail supplements and what you're going to get with a professional line. But just because a label says chelate, which that's how we name our products, our magnesium chelate, that is the name of our magnesium product, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to contain this TRAACS, the amino acid chelated solution. So that's what you want to look for on a label. That's great advice to the consumer. What about, speaking of fish oil, you brought up fish oil. Let's talk about the sea to shelf life from for fish oil. I was asking earlier about, okay, an herb, right? When we think of it growing on a farm and getting into a bottle on the shelves, when we think of fish oil, that's coming from the sea. So we're not near the ocean. How long is the average industry time for fish oil to be manufactured from the sea until it hits the shelf? And how does that compare with the fish oil manufacturer we're choosing to partner with, you guys? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. And I want to kind of paint a picture real quick before I throw kind of that number out, because it really goes into what creates that long logistical time from catch to capsule, if you will. And when we source a fish oil, for instance, so every supplement company out there, I'm not aware of any professional or retail that owns their own fishery, that catches the fish and does the encapsulation themselves and then puts it on a shelf. Almost all fish oil product is outsourced to a supplier. Now, the interesting thing is that most of the fish oil suppliers outsource the fishing. So they'll contract a fishery to get boats to go out, net fish, bring the fish back, and then the supplier will then process the fish and ultimately get that to a supplement provider or manufacturer such as ours. Now, there's different parts of that process that are generally outsourced, such as molecular distillation. So there's different pieces that are ultimately across the globe that require putting a big vat of this fish oil into a shipping container and then shipping it around the world. They're not just like, putting it on an airplane and flying it somewhere. It takes a long time to get around the world. And generally, up until more recently, these molecular distillation facilities were in China and Europe. And so that being the case, one, China, we don't, the questionable quality there, as I believe all of our consumers here are aware of, and the other being Europe. And if the majority of fish, which, is the case, is sourced off the coast of South America, it's the least industrialized coastline in the world. There's a lot of fisheries there. There's deep cold waters off the coast there in between Antarctica and South America, that there's just a huge biomass of fish. So if you consider that they have to catch it there and then ship it around the world, a lot of time. And so the industry average of catch to capsule, is more particularly in the retail channel, and even some source in the professional channel, is upwards of 18, sometimes even as long as 36 months. You can imagine.
That's just nuts. I mean, I would think that fish oil would be rancid by then. Like, how could they keep it fresh? I don't know. That's just my instinct.
So that's another question.
Yeah.
And I want to say your fish oil, by the way, the fish oil that we source is from a supplier that is located in Chile, so located in South America. They own the entire process. So they own the fishery, the boats that catch the fish, the nets, which are dolphin-free, mind you, as well as the molecular distillation facility and the state-of-the-art lab where everything is happening in one spot. So no logistics involved outside of, going to another campus within their confines. And so the catch to capsule time is can be as little as short as 3 months. So that 3 to 6 month range is generally when it goes from catch capsule and then ultimately ends up on the shelf in your clinic, which is amazing when you consider the difference from 18 to 36 months. Now, to answer your question on the rancidity piece, so one, yes, shortening that cycle, that time span between catch to capsule is of course going to have a drastic effect on rancidity or lack thereof in our case. But we also add, and a lot of other companies will do certain things to try and prevent that through, sometimes they'll add thick capsules, flavorings, and they'll enteric coat it to hide it so that way you don't burp it up, where it basically passes passes through your stomach and then duodenal gut and then break open, which renders it essentially ineffective because it needs to be emulsified and absorbed in our duodenum. So if it passes that, then just not going to get emulsified and utilized properly. So our product, the product that you contract through us, is not only is a triglyceride form, so much more absorbed and then more incorporated to address inflammation, which is why we take fish oil in the first place, but we use things like rosemary and vitamin E or mixed tocopherols to help from an oxidation standpoint to preserve that particular fish oil to prevent oxidation. Not only that, but we're also doing primary and secondary oxidation testing, looking at 500 different environmental toxins to ensure that there are no quality concerns or
no heavy metals,
toxicity concerns.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's a whole other thing that we could get into. Even like things like mercury, cadmium, arsenic, lead. We use an EU certified or EU standardized, more rather, testing facility out of Germany called Eurofins that tests well below the standardization or recommendation of the FDA as it relates to things like mercury. We're talking about 1,000 times better or lower standardization than is even allowed by the FDA. And we don't have to do that, but we do because we want to go above and beyond to ensure quality. And not only that, but we are working with other countries that do require a better standardization. So we want to make sure that we're meeting their standards above and beyond.
Wonderful.
So of course, here in the United States, your patients get to benefit from that higher level of standardization that we aim to provide.
We love it. That's why we carry your product. Go back to the mention of the triglyceride form of fish oil. So I think most individuals have never heard of this. So when you consume a supplement, you want to consume it in the most natural form, right? Like if I'm eating salmon, I would be getting the benefit of the oil in what's called this triglyceride form. If I'm going to consume a synthetic fish oil, um, the manufacturing of that process kind of destroys that not our process, but destroys that form and attaches an extra alcohol molecule, which is harder for the body to detoxify. So can you expand on that a little bit, how most fish oil products are in this synthetic ethyl ester form and ours is not, ours is in this triglyceride form? Maybe expand on that if I didn't say that right.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I will start with is that all fish oil processing is the same to an extent. So it starts off the same. So you catch the fish, you bring the fish into the facility, and just like you said, when you consume fish in nature, you are consuming omega-3s in a triglyceride form. So that's a glycerol backbone with 3 fatty acids, right? And combined with things like EPA and DHA, and those are what's been studied. There's thousands of research papers done on the benefits of those omega-3s. And when it comes in a supplemental form, so we're catching these fish, mind you, a small species of fish, the one in your product, is standardized for anchovies. So it's the smallest species of fish, lower bioaccumulation of toxins because it's lower on the food chain. And of course, there's a cost to standardizing just the fish, much less, the therapeutic components of that oil. And so when we catch that fish, we squeeze out the triglycerides. Ultimately, we extract those triglycerides in the form of glycerol backbone, 3 fatty acids, and then what happens is they essentially cleave off that glycerol backbone, exposing those fatty acids for concentration. And that process is called ethylation. And so you mentioned an alcohol component, and that is actually an ethyl alcohol. So they bind an ethanol backbone to those fatty acids in order for to concentrate EPA and DHA, more so to stabilize them through that process. Now, after molecular distillation occurs in that process, that's where the majority of fish oil companies stop. And that would be known as an ethyl ester. Basically, it's a semi-synthetic form of fish oil. And there's actually some pharmaceutical versions of those out on the market today. They don't call themselves fish oil, but that's what they are. They're an ethanol-based fish oil. And so our process actually goes through a similar process to concentrate that EPA and DHA. Now we take it a step further. Again, additional costs associated with that. We then remove that ethanol backbone and then reattach the glycerol piece, bringing it back into that triglyceride form in that natural state. So you basically have a semi-synthetic state or a natural state, which is known as a reesterified triglyceride. And there is a ton of clinical data to show that not only is it more absorbed, to the tune of 70% greater absorbed in a triglyceride state versus an ethyl ester state, but more importantly, why do we take a fish oil? We take it to compete with arachidonic acid, aka inflammation. Mm-hmm. And that occurs in the phospholipid bilayer of our cells. So basically our red blood cells, there's the outer layer, that bilayer of our cell is what houses that inflammation, and incorporation up to 290% of our key omega-3s, such as DHA and EPA, over 62%, better than that of an ethyl ester. So we're talking significant difference in moving those particular markers, which you probably test for in your cardio panels using omega-3 index tests. You can see those things in your labs. And again, it comes back to what's the most expensive supplement. It's the one that doesn't work. And you can tie that almost directly to quality differences.
Yeah, I'll echo what you said. So yes, we do test that. So if anyone's listening and wants to have their omega-3 fatty acid index looked at and look at how much EPA and DHA are literally in your blood, we can do that. And that can help me it can help me come up with what dose of omega-3s you should be taking. I have tested so many people that I am just convinced we all need it. So I do heavily recommend fish oil in my practice. Let's go on to another myth here. We spent a lot of time on that one, and that was wonderful. You gave us very helpful tips, so thank you. So you already started potentially answering how you might respond to this next myth, but I'll just ask it and see what your response is. So myth number 2 is that supplements are not FDA regulated. What do you have to say about that?
So I would say that's absolutely false. When it comes to the supplement industry, we're actually more tightly regulated on certain things than the FDA would regulate, say, a pharmaceutical company, particularly when it comes to potency. And when you think about a drug, for instance, there's actually a deviation that is allowed, an allowable deviation from what they standardize. I think it's 5% either way or 10% either way. When it comes to a nutrient or a supplement, we're not allowed to be deviated a little. It has to be right on point. And I'll use probiotics as an example. You have to have what's on the label in the bottle, no deviation below. Now you can deviate up in order to ensure that at date of expiration, say if our product says 20 billion colony-form units, there has to be 20 billion colony-form units at date of expiration. Now, here is where a lot of companies start playing games with the supplement facts box. And so, and this gives our industry a bad name. And so I want to outline that in retail supplements are really bad about this. They won't put expiration dates. They'll put born on dates. You only have to prove potency on that date, right? So at date of manufacture, it could be, say, 20 billion. And then it could be sitting on the shelf for 24 months. Well, we know there's a natural die-off associated with that. So when we manufacture a product, we have an expiration date, and it's generally 12 months on something that's a live organism or an oil. And at that expiration date, there's still 20 billion. So what do? We actually manufacture an overage, right? So we ensure that because of maybe human error, if we leave it in our car, or shipping, if we're shipping to, say, Miami, when it's 100 degrees all year round or higher in humidity, we want to ensure that not only is our product going to survive on the shelf for at least 12 months, but it's also going to survive, some different climates as well. And at date of expiration, there's still that 20 billion in there. And so I want to make that very, very clear. Always make sure that when you're taking something, there's an expiration date on the bottle, not a born on date, an expiration date, because that the FDA holds that manufacturer accountable to prove that that product has that potency at minimum at that date on the bottle.
That's so good. And I think many people don't realize that. So again, to summarize, for instance, for all the products, but specifically for things like probiotics, our product is guaranteed to have the potency that the label reads it has at its date of expiration, not just the date of manufacturing or that born on date. And so that's also another reason why supplements are not created equal. Back to myth 1. So let's go to myth 3. And we've alluded to a little bit of this as well already, but myth 3 is that there are no studies showing the effectiveness and the safety of supplements. What do you think about that?
That again is wrong. There are tons of papers out there showing safety and efficacy. There's double-blind human clinical trials on specific raw materials. As a matter of fact, we have a raw material, and I'll bring this one up because it's local to Iowa. Our supplier is actually out of Ankeny, and there's 57 studies done on this raw material in humans. 43 of those are human clinical trials. And we're looking at significant data, significant amount of patients involved in these studies. And of course, efficacy and safety are proven throughout those studies. And that's just one example. I mean, we have over 170 products. A lot of our raw materials have safety efficacy studies done as well.
When we think of even like turmeric, turmeric is in the ginger family, right? It's that orange root. I've loved that some of the meals I'm ordering for my son, normally we will make carrots or sweet potatoes or whatnot for him. He eats a lot of peas lately. At night we'll steam his veggies. But if I have a night where I just don't have time to cook, I order him some freezer meals. And I'm loving that some companies are now putting superfoods, things like turmeric, into his meals. I'm thinking at such a young age, he's getting some of these nutrients, which is amazing. But back to turmeric, which I'm delighted has been in some of his meals. Turmeric has been studied by other cultures, or has been used in other cultures for centuries and studied for years. So do you want to expand a little bit on the science research behind turmeric?
Yeah. And to your point, it's the golden spice. It's been around for thousands of years. And so if that doesn't prove that there's some safety and efficacy behind this, then I don't know what is. And it's been used not only as a spice for food, but it's been used medicinally for that long. And there's thousands of research articles done on turmeric, and even curcumin alone, which is just one small component of turmeric root. Now, I would say, and actually I want to say one thing when it comes to vitamins, minerals, and botanicals. Vitamins and minerals, it is important that they are absorbed and taken into the serum, into our bloodstream, in order to help from a therapeutic standpoint. When it comes to botanicals, we want to ensure that they have the time to be naturally fermented and broken down by our microbiome. That is the way nature intended, right? And so we don't want necessarily botanicals to be competing with food. So vitamins and minerals with food, botanicals and herbs without. And they're designed because they're complexes, right? Turmeric is not a single component. There's 200 plus, 230 plus different bioactive components of turmeric, and we want to take advantage of that entire complex. Matter of fact, there's research out there. I know everybody thinks, when they think turmeric, they think curcumin and they think absorption. Again, I want to get away from the marketing there, is that a lot of the retail companies are saying, hey, ours is the most absorbed. It's 200% more absorbed than this other one over here. There's not a single paper of over 8,000 citations on curcumin. There's not a single paper that actually links absorption with patient outcomes. So let's get away from the marketing and start looking at the research and start looking at more complete matrices. So when you're looking for curcumin, look for turmeric and look for one that includes volatile oils, tumerones, right? The actual proteins and carbohydrates, a complete turmeric matrix, because there's plenty of research out there that even removing curcumin from a turmeric product, a complete turmeric product, still yields just as good or better results. So we've been throwing baby out with the bathwater by just focusing on curcumin. So there's a lot of great new botanical research out there, and it's going to change our entire industry, I believe.
And I just think that speaks to the power of plants, right? So we've been so fixated on this one component, curcumin, but there are other beneficial components to that plant, to that root. So well said. I'm going to see if I can reach this product behind me, because I want to ask you about mitochondrial, a product we carry called mitochondrial complex, which is created to help boost mitochondrial function. I'm going to see if I can reach it with my headphones in here.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So this is by far my favorite product, and I was sold on the research behind it when I was educated on it. So this product has actually been studied in HIV AIDS patients for, we'll just say, boosting immunity. And can you expand on that? You know the studies more than I do.
Yeah, so that nutrient blend, and I'll say this, that particular product is my personal favorite product. I happen to take it every day. I take it with me when I travel, and it couldn't be more of a relevant product in our current times when everybody's really concerned about immune support. And I'll just say that when we think of mitochondrial health, it's synonymous with cellular health. And as organisms ourselves, made up of organs, which are made up of cells, if the cell is unhealthy, the organism, us, is unhealthy, right? So we want to make sure that we're focusing at the root and providing nutrients that are going to support cellular function, and that's exactly what that product's designed to do. And the cool thing is it's been shown in clinical trials. Matter of fact, a double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial in patients that have a significant immunocompromising virus, HIV, where they were taking a retroviral cocktail, which caused significant mitochondrial dysfunction. So basically, if you're familiar with that, it stabilizes T cell count, but doesn't really do much good for the organism as far as feeling good and operations from an organ standpoint. So this particular product, particular micronutrient blend, was able to raise or improve CD4 cell count, so that principal immune cell, 24% in just a 12-week period. That is significant when it comes to showing the mechanism of action and how something like this works in increasing the efficiency, or supporting the efficiency more rather, that the mitochondrial functions in producing ATP. So when we think of how the destiny of every cell is destined to divide, and we want to make sure that we're creating healthy cells to divide into other healthy cells, And when we think of the mitochondria, that's the engine of the cell. So when you think of say a car engine, I know you use a train analogy. I'm gonna use a car one. But when you think of a car engine, the weaker the engine, the weaker the vehicle, the horsepower, and sometimes maybe you don't make it from A to B. When we're thinking about our cells, we want a strong, healthy mitochondria because that's going to allow the cell to be efficient in what it's supposed to do, whether it be fight an infection or detox or create a liver cell, or we think stem cells to whatever they become, but ultimately divide into what they need to do or need to be. So increasing glucose and fatty acids more efficiently, but also addressing the oxidative stress from that respiration, that cellular breathing and operation creates oxidative stress on the back end. We want to make sure we're providing a healthy antioxidant blend as well. So you've got this mitochondrial cocktail, which was probably, I would argue, that's one of your most amazing products that you have in your entire line, Dr. Gray, that is built on the backbone of a multivitamin. So your patient can take it regularly as a multivitamin, but get the added bonus of it being a mitochondrial cocktail as well, and an antioxidant blend. So it's really multiple products in one. And from a cost standpoint, it's very, very competitive when you think of, you could be buying 5 or 6 products. Instead, you get one and you get all this amazing benefit that's been clinically researched.
And I totally agree. It's both of our favorite product. We would speak to the results we've had. I mean, my brain fog, my energy just is through the roof when I take it. I love that product. And when I was pregnant and breastfeeding, I just was itching to get back on that product because I wanted to take it because it can help with detox. That's why I took a break from it while I was pregnant and then breastfeeding, but I'm back on it now. I know this myth is more about there being or not being, which we now have demystified that, hopefully proving there are studies on the efficacy and safety of supplements. But I want to talk a little bit about this product real quick. So like you mentioned, it's a multivitamin, and I explain that to my patients as being a Cadillac of all multivitamins because it's loaded with antioxidants. The secret sauce here is that it also contains acetyl L-carnitine, alpha-lipoic acid, and N-acetylcysteine. So back to kind of the car or the train analogy, right? You have to fuel the train with wood, right? So you're shoveling wood or coal or something into the train to fuel it, not wood. Dang, I got to redo that. Why did I say wood? Okay. Shoot, I got to redo
Hey, there used to be wood.
It used to be
wood.
It used to be wood. Shoot. Okay.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Patients would get that one.
Okay, I got to start that over. So we both can attest to how important and how effective this product has been for us. I know when I was pregnant and breastfeeding, I couldn't take it, and I was just itching to get back on it because it helps me with brain fog and with energy. I love the product. So as you mentioned, it is a multivitamin, but I tell my patients it's like the Cadillac of all multivitamins because it has those key players. It has acetyl L-carnitine, alpha-lipoic acid, and N-acetylcysteine, just to name some of the extra ingredients in it. And speaking to the car analogy you mentioned, with my patients, I do explain to them that many times, if you think of your body as more of a train, certain cells, right, your body needs energy. And so when we think of a train, the conductor is shoveling coal into the train to get the train to go, right? And our body uses fatty acids for energy, but the byproduct of using those or of using the coal is smoke. So what are we going to do with the smoke, right? We have to mitigate the effects of that. And that's where the antioxidants come in to get rid of that smoke. So this product is also designed for detox. It has agents in it to promote detoxification, to boost glutathione. And that's also why I couldn't take it while I was pregnant or breastfeeding. But this product is not only beneficial for patients who have immune challenges, like when we were mentioning the research behind HIV and AIDS and this improving their counts. There have been studies on this product also showing athletes who are or individuals who are more stressed, period, are less likely to get sick when they're taking this product because it also is supporting their immune system. I don't remember the exact study, but I believe that's the truth.
Yeah, when I think about this product, and to your point, I like the train analogy, by the way. Think of it supporting a high octane fuel engine, but also low emissions at the same time.
Low emissions.
And we're in a low emission world, right? And really, this isn't a product you're going to take where you feel like you just took a 5-hour energy. This is a cellular energy product, right? It's not like a caffeine energy. So your patients don't have to worry about being overstimulated or anything like that. Really, we're trying to build our resilience is the better way to put it, right? The better and more efficient our engines are, the better our fleet. And ultimately, when we're either under an acute issue or just trying to keep up with normal daily function, we're more supported in that regard.
Wonderful. Well, let's move on to the next myth. So myth 4 is that I don't need a multivitamin. Speaking of multivitamins, I am going to answer that that's incorrect. That's wrong. You absolutely do need a multivitamin. And in chapter 4 of my book, Your Longevity Blueprint, I break this down pretty comprehensively, just talking about why we as a society are so nutritionally deficient. Our soils are deficient, so naturally the soil will then produce food that's also nutritionally deficient. Our food processes, when we think of just the harvesting, the processing, storing, freezing, how we're cooking foods with high heat, all causes our foods to lose nutrients. And I have patients who literally grow their own organic food in their backyard. And I run a nutritional analysis on them still under the suspicion that they still do have nutritional deficiencies. And I come to find that they do. So if those individuals have nutritional deficiencies, then I certainly am going to have them. So what do you think about individuals needing a multivitamin? What are your thoughts?
It's essential. And not only everything you just said, but there's even so much more things working against us. So not only do we have to consume nutrient-dense food, which really doesn't exist, outside of maybe certain regions of the world that have been unaffected by, our commercialization of literally everything. But we have to have a healthy GI tract and microbiome to even digest it, to extract the nutrients we need. And that in and of itself is an energy dependent process. So we're using nutrients to extract nutrients. And if we're not getting enough nutrients from our food, we might end up in a nutrient deficiency or deficit. If you think of it like a savings account, we keep spending and spending and spending, but if we're not getting any return on our investment, that's when cellular health starts to struggle, and then ultimately leads to patients ending up in your office. But I would also say, with regards to just food and supplements by definition are adding to, right? They're designed to support, and you can't outrun a bad diet, and you can't out-supplement no movement or no exercise. But I would say that as it relates to nutrients in general, we have to make sure that we're supporting ourselves in that regard, because we simply are, like you said, we're not getting it from our food. We don't live in a utopian society where everything is perfect and soil is just ever nutritious. It just doesn't exist.
Not the case anymore. Totally agreed. You once told me that the only example where you would not need a multivitamin is if you live in a utopian, like a perfect society, but we clearly don't. Last myth here, and then I have a couple extra questions for you, is that I can get enough good bacteria for my microbiome from fermented foods.
Yeah, I would say again, how do you know? There's very few stability and shelf stability. Not only that, but your digestive tract. We don't know that. There's literally no proof that actually is factual. So what I would say is we don't know enough about our gut to know that that's true. We're constantly finding things about our microbiome. Now, there's some things we do know, in that when you're taking some type of probiotic supplement, to which I would say, fermented foods, hey, absolutely, they're great, they're healthy, but is that enough? We don't know. So when you're taking something like a probiotic, things to look for would be a strain diversity, but more so genetic diversity, which you're not going to necessarily see on a label. So you might have to dig a little bit deeper. Additionally, survivability, shelf stability, there's a whole bunch of factors that play in. So you want to make sure that of anything that you're taking, live organisms, you want to ensure that there's research behind it, and it comes from a reputable source. And by the way, it's probably the most commoditized product out there in the retail channel. There's thousands of different types of probiotics. You don't know what you're getting. So go with a trusted source. And to that end, there's so many things working against us, which is why probiotics are so popular and why they're so highly recommended, like clinicians in the functional space like yourself, in that there's antibiotics in cleaning products. There's antibiotics in our water that is seeped into our water. There's antibiotics in our food. If you don't get antibiotic-free meats and I guess animal products, I guess you'd say, and ultimately things that we put on our skin. So our skin and our gut totally tied together. Our skin is an accurate representation of what's going on in our gut. If there's something going on in your skin, chances are it's stemming from there. And ultimately, again, it comes back to we don't know enough about our microbiome, constantly discovering things. We know less about that, I think, than we know about our universe. And for somebody to say, I know that this will do this, and they're marketing that, unfortunately, that is what it is. It's marketing.
We don't know enough yet. Yeah. I think maybe my answer to this myth, or my response would be that if you were vaginal delivery, no complications, you were breastfed, you've never taken any antibiotics, again, you live in this utopian society, then maybe you could get enough. I mean, we don't know for sure, but maybe you could get enough healthy bacteria from fermented foods. But if you have taken antibiotics, which you clearly have ingested them, as you mentioned, if you drink coffee, alcohol, I mean, if you're consuming foods that cause inflammation, so if you're eating sugar, which most people do, gluten, dairy, soy, corn, if you're eating inflammatory oils, consuming them, cooking with them, your microbiome is being, impacted by that. And so most people, I do think, need to take a probiotic. There is a caveat there. If patients have SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which I've had, there may be times that those patients don't tolerate certain types of probiotics. So I'm not preaching that everybody needs a probiotic. I'm just saying that, hey, we are, like you mentioned, learning more and more about the microbiome, and more than likely, we probably aren't getting enough good bacteria from fermented foods to combat all the antibiotics and other, crap we've been exposed to that are impacting our microbiome. So,
hey, 50 years ago, taking a capsule filled with bacteria would have been totally unheard of. But and a lot of the research out there is very much correlation data, and eating plants, for instance, the diversity in plants you eat directly correlates with the diversity in your microbiome. And what we know is that more diverse microbiomes are generally found in healthier individuals. Again, we're talking about correlation, not necessarily causation, but I would argue that we do know the GI tract is married to everything else. And I've heard multiple times from clinicians like yourself, as well as researchers, that 70 to 80%, some argue even higher, of our immune system resides in our gut. So this is generally the first place we want to go, which is, again, why probiotics are so popular. It's such a big space, and just GI health in general is a huge target for not only biopharmaceutical companies, but even supplement companies like the one I represent, and others in our space.
Yeah. This is also why chapter 1 of my book is so important, because I'm talking about that foundation of our health being our gut. So that's something that you're right, I address firstly with all my patients. Before we move to other steps of the blueprint, we have to address gut health. So Tom, tell us, what are some supplements that you take on a daily basis? Like, what can you not live without? Like, what do you love? You love mitochondrial complex. What else do you love?
I take a fish oil, I take a probiotic, I take a vitamin D with K2. I take 5 to 10,000 a day with 180 to 360 micrograms of vitamin K2, as well as, I don't know if I said a probiotic, but a glutathione product as well, a reduced glutathione.
Can you speak to K2 briefly here? So that K2 that is used in the manufacturing of our products specifically is a special, again, kind of like how we mentioned the amino acid chelated, trademarked a solution that we're using in our products. There is not an equivalent, but a similar option for K2. So what are we using in our products? Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so the vitamin K2, it's actually exclusive to our company, in that we're such a large user of vitamin K2, we're able to get exclusive access to this particular raw material that has over 19 human clinical studies. And not only can it make the claim of being researched in the cardiovascular realm, but also bone mineral density. And it is a specific form. It's called MENAQ7. We use form in all of our vitamin K2 and all of our products is that form. So you get to benefit from that being in our raw material regime. And it has not only a longer half-life, but with regard to the research, has shown to have a positive impact on specific proteins that help pull calcium out of the blood and incorporate it into the bone matrix. Basically, we know extra calcium is bad when it's floating around in our bloodstream. We think of plaquing, and we think of calcification of our arteries and ligaments and tendons, muscles, what have you. And unfortunately, or fortunately, I like cheese, but we have a society that consumes a ton of dairy, which is very rich in calcium, and other food products that have a lot of calcium. And we also hit our system with a ton of vitamin D because that's the popular thing to do. Vitamin D is essential. But in doing so, we need to make sure that when we take a lot of vitamin D and we eat a lot of cheese and we eat a lot of things that are calcium containing, we're allowing calcium in the bloodstream more readily because vitamin D is involved in that process. So we need to balance it with a vitamin K2 to support that calcium regulation. And in that regard, be healthier from a cardiovascular standpoint.
And I've had kidney stones, which were terrible, absolutely terrible.
Another side effect of extra calcium.
I don't wish that on anyone. Yeah. So K2 is more the usher that's going to direct that calcium from the blood into the bone matrix. So not causing kidney stones and calcifications elsewhere. So yes, you need vitamin D. Vitamin D is very important, great for immune health, but K2 is equally as important. And if you're taking D3, you should be taking K2 as well. So what are you doing to support your immune system through this time?
It's interesting. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing foundational, I'm taking a lot of foundational health products, and we think about what does the immune system need? Well, the immune system needs to ensure that it is uninterrupted. So that way it's ready for an immune assault. One, I would argue that turmeric, probiotic, those two things have a profound impact on a healthy microbiome, which I mentioned earlier. 70-80% of the immune system resides in the gut. So a healthy gut, healthy immune system, regular exercise, not over exercising, but regular exercise, regular movement is essential as well. And so foundational nutrition is preventional nutrition. And we want to build metabolic reserve so that way our body can address any potential immune assault and have the necessary fuel to fight the good fight. I think I heard from you used a word picture, you got to have bullets for your gun. And ultimately bullets for our gun is the nutrients and the fuel source that our cells are going to need to fight the war. And so by taking a mitochondrial complex and a probiotic and a fish oil, that macro, micro, and phytonutrient regime, I'm filling the difference, that gap, if you will, and what's missing out of the food that I'm consuming. And I consume all organic, non-GMO, but it just doesn't have the nutrients to keep up with what I'm going to need to fight something should I get affected by it.
You're building your immune resiliency, as you would put it, which is wonderful.
Exactly.
Do you have any top longevity hacks or anything? Is there anything that you do on a daily basis that you want to, other than the supplements that you want to share with the audience?
Immune hacks. I am a geek when it comes to mitochondrial support, so I do actually take more than I probably should from the mitochondrial complex. But I do oftentimes, and I'm not right now, wear blue light glasses when it's supposed to be dark out. And again, a lot of theory, but when I think about the evolution of our bodies, we used to not have light, and so let the sun wake you up. If I'm waking up when it's dark out, as soon as the sun comes up, I like to look out the window and get some of that natural blue light to get the natural awakening response, but try and follow the sleep-wake cycle. I do a rotational diet. You think about the summer, summer is when fruit is plentiful and vegetables and things growing on trees and ground. That's when insulin is okay, in moderation. And then in the winter, when those things aren't generally available, I try to stick with more of a keto side of a diet, or paleo in some instances, depending on, what side of the tracks you fall on there. But I try to keep as close to I can as a seasonal diet, and get good sleep, and good exercise. But there is a yin to the yang. So enjoy yourself every now and again. Give yourself a break. Don't put too much stress on yourself. That is, if you have a pulse, you have stress, so you have to do a good job with trying to balance things, spend time with family and kids and friends.
Yeah, and I was just going to say you have a beautiful little daughter, so I'm sure she brings you all kinds of joy.
I'm surprised she hasn't come barging in here yet.
And you're feeding your bacterial diversity by rotating the foods through the season. So wonderful tips.
And knowledge, right? Knowledge is power.
Yes.
Knowing how to read labels, knowing what to look for. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know, which is why I rely on clinicians like yourself and these types of conversations. I garner a lot, over the last, 9-10 years, just having these conversations has drastically helped my personal health as well as those that I love. So knowing and not just reading something on the internet and headlining, but trust and verify.
Well, you provided us with lots of brilliant information today, so I hope we busted several supplement myths. So thank you for your brilliance and for your time, and thank you for just really building into clinicians like myself so that I can help my patients. So we appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thank you for your partnership and everything you do on the front lines and transforming the way medicine is done in our country. And it was an honor to be able to be on this with you.
Well, thank you, Tom. Thank you very much.